he just has cartoonish stats.
The four men have 23 first-team All-Pros.
He's got an all-time quotable.
All-time quotable.
You know. So, a couple weeks ago, we did the AFC West all-time teams. But let me start from the top. Welcome, everybody, to the Football Elevated podcast. I was too excited. I jumped right in. Welcome to the Football Elevated podcast. I'm your host, Khaled Abdallah, and I'm joined by my co-host, Mack, Bryant, the football Fanstorian. So a couple weeks ago, we did the AFC West all-time teams, and this week, we're doing the NFC West. So before we jump in to all of the teams, how's everything going today? And any overall thoughts on the research that we had to do to get this podcast going?
I tell you what, I really feel for Falcons fans. or excuse me, not Falcons fans, Cardinals fans.
Yes.
So I feel for Falcons fans too. I'm one of those. But I feel for Cardinals fans. This is the oldest franchise. It's one of the two original franchises that still exist. It is, the franchise actually dates back to 1890 something. They've had two titles. One of them was disputed in the 1920s. They haven't won a title since 1947. And when you look at the all-time team, I mean, there's some spots where it's bare. And you think about how rough it must have been to be a Cardinals fan. And I tangentially know a little bit about that because I lived in St. Louis in the late 70s and in all of the 80s. So I was there when the team moved from St. Louis to Arizona. And it's striking to me how few or how much of the team dates back 40, 50, 60 years. You could even do it. You could even do it more than that if you wanted. I did my best to lean into the years that are closer to us. But some of their best players, no doubt, played in the 20s and 30s.
Yes, absolutely.
Which is crazy.
That was the case for a couple of these. I mean, I know the Seahawks were an expansion franchise, so they don't date quite as far back. But a lot of these teams are real OG NFL teams from back in the day. I mean, the Seahawks, they were an AFC West team when they first expanded, so maybe that's why they don't have the same history as some of these other guys. But this was definitely a different journey than the AFC West, a little further back in time, which is okay. That's what we're here to do. You are the Fanstorian for a reason, so we're not afraid of going back into the archives.
Not afraid of digging into the stacks.
Exactly. So we are going to go through the teams. We'll do Cardinals, Seahawks, Rams, and then Niners. Mack is going to go first. He's going to introduce his all-time Cardinals offense and defense. Offense first, and then I will respond with mine. He'll do his defense. I'll go with mine, and then we'll flip-flop for the other two teams. So, go ahead. The Arizona, Chicago, St. Louis, Phoenix, Cardinals. Let's hear your all-time offense.
Well, let's start with the head coach, and this is part of the sadness, right? The all-time winningest head coach, meaning the coach that has the most wins, is Ken Wisenhunt, with 49 wins and a losing record. That is the winningest, if you want to say it that way, coach for the Cardinals franchise. Now, I would argue that Don Coryell was probably their best coach. He had 42 wins and 600 winning percentage, and they were really good in the 5 or 6 years that he was there in the 70s. So I would argue that he's their best coach, but you know what? I'm going to argue that. Don Coryell, my coach for this squad. The quarterback is Jim Hart. Now, Jim Hart is a quarterback that's not talked about hardly at all. But what most fans might not know is that he was, in the 1970s, he was one of the best quarterbacks in the league, and only Fran Tarkenton had more passing yards in the 1970s than Jim Hart. But you don't hear his name at all these days.
Never.
Yeah, never. He's my quarterback. I'm going with two running backs. Ollie Madsen, who was a 5-time first-team All-Pro in the 50s, and he was an Olympic medalist for the U.S. track team, before he joined the Cardinals. So he's obviously a multi-talented athlete. He played offense.
This is when they were in Chicago.
In Chicago, yes, before they moved to St. Louis. He played offense, defense, and special teams, but primarily a running back. So he's a running back here. And then I've got Larry Centers, who is the all-time leader in receptions for a running back. and didn't do all of it for the Cardinals, but did a good bit of it for the Cardinals. So he's my second running back. And then receivers, of course, you got Larry. There's no question there. He's probably the best player in franchise history, not just at that position. And then I went with at the second wide receiver spot, I went with Roy Green. Now, Roy Green is interesting to me because he started out his career as a defensive back and a kick returner. And he did that for 3 or 4 years. And then they decided, you know what, let's play him full time on the offense. And he promptly went for 2 first-team All-Pros in the first 2 years that he was a wide receiver. So he's my wide receiver 2. And then tight end is Jackie Smith. Now, Jackie Smith is a Hall of Fame tight end, played primarily with the Cardinals, but sadly, he's probably best known for a play that he didn't make with the Cowboys in Super Bowl 13. For those historians among us, he dropped a touchdown pass from Roger Staubach in the end zone late in Super Bowl 13 against the Steelers. And the classic call, oh, he must be the sickest man in the world. But he dropped the pass. They didn't score, and the Steelers won that game. But he was, before that, he was an amazing tight end, again, toiling in obscurity for the St. Louis Cardinals.
Yeah.
The line,
can I go give my skill position, guys?
Yeah.
So Jackie Smith, interesting tidbit. He retired at the time. He was the all-time receptions leader by a tight end when he retired. So I had a very similar lineup, but I should have found room for Larry Centers. I probably should have done that. But I went with Jim Hart, and then my 2 running backs, Ollie Matson and Otis Anderson.
I love OJ. OJ he was amazing, especially his first couple of years.
Yeah, exactly. So he was also a St. Louis guy, 2-time All-Pro, 1 first team, 1 second team, offensive rookie of the year, franchise's all-time leading rusher. That's one of the reasons I couldn't leave him off, even though we'll see what happens when we get to the Rams in that case. But yeah, right. But the receiver is the same, and then Jackie Smith was my tight end. Larry Centers, you know what? I regret not having him, but maybe I should have done that instead of Roy Green.
OJ was a great choice. I mean, as I told you, I was living there when OJ was doing his thing. So he was a big deal, and it was heartbreaking to fans when he left and went to the Giants, and of course did his thing and helped the Giants win a Super Bowl. But he came out of the gate fast, like you said, offensive rookie of the year, I believe, and All Pro in his rookie season. He was an amazing bag. I had him as an honorable mention.
We see that pretty often with running backs. They just come out hot out the gates. The common, football discourse, whatever. It's it's the easiest position to contribute right away, because you just got to run the ball.
Yeah. And the lifespan is so short that if you're going to be good, you're going to be good quick, because you're not going to find out in year 7 that you've got a good running back. You're going to find out now.
Exactly. All right. And then offensive line.
Offensive line, it's thin on the offensive line. Dan Dierdorf is a Hall of Famer, and he's my starting tackle. I went with Ernie McMillan as the other tackle. He's a couple-time All-Pro, 2-time second-team All-Pro, a few Pro Bowls in there as well. My center is Tom Banks, again, 4 Pro Bowls, first-team All-Pro, second-team All-Pro. None of these, these are solid players, but they're not all-time players. They're not well-known names. Ken Gray, Pro Bowler again, 6-time Pro Bowler, 4-time All-Pro, 3-time second-team All-Pro, and then Bob DeMarco is my other guard. So Banks is the center, Gray and DeMarco are the guards, McMillan and Hall of Famer Dan Dierdorf are the tackles for me.
Okay. We've got 3 of the same 5. The 2 that you did not have was the one of the tackles was Louis Sharp.
Yeah, Louis Sharp.
82 to 94. He played in St. Louis, Phoenix, Arizona. Never was an All-Pro, but a Pro Bowler 3 times. And then I went way, way back in the archives. Walt Kiesling. 1929 to 1933. The All-Pro selections was the kind of the differentiator. And he was a Hall of Famer as well. It's one of these guys that's it's hard to project him as a current offensive lineman, considering he probably weighed 210 pounds or something.
Right.
But he was a two-way player.
Defense. He was playing defense too, of course.
Exactly. But I was like, okay, he's a Hall of Famer, class of 66.
It's valid.
All these All-Pros. Let's throw him on there. Why not?
Yes.
All right, and let's hear
All right.
your defense. I
My
think
defense.
this is where it gets interesting, really interesting.
Yeah, it's that's the thing. Like the offense was a little murky. The defense, well, it's very interesting because they've got one unit that matches up
Yeah.
against every any other all-team unit. And
Yep,
then,
absolutely.
but by the time you get there, so let's start with the defensive line. I'm going with a 4-3. Off
Okay.
the edge,
Oh,
I've got Chandler
okay.
Jones, who is their
Mhm.
a franchise leader in sacks. On the other side, I have Calais Campbell, who played a lot of years for the Cardinals. He was a 2-time second-team All-Pro for the Cardinals. Did a lot of good work in other places too, right? He played the Jags is probably where
He's
he
still
was
playing
the
too.
best. And he's still playing. Yeah, he spent a year here in Atlanta. He bounced. I think he went to the Dolphins
In
for a year. I mean,
Baltimore, Miami.
Baltimore. I mean, yeah, he's on the tour trying to just trying to extend it. Hey, I would too.
Yeah.
And then up the middle, I've got Eric Swan and Darnell Dockett as my tackles. Both of them, well, Eric Swan, a 2-time Pro Bowler. Dockett was an All-Pro as well. But again, solid, if not superstar all-time players.
Okay.
And then as linebackers, again, pretty thin. I mean, you've got I've got a guy, and I don't mean to say it this way, but I've got a guy named Dale Minert, who was a 3-time Pro Bowler in the 60s. EJ Jr., who was a star player for the Cardinals in the 80s. He was a first-team All-Pro one time in the 80s. EJ Jr. And then Larry Stallings, who was a linebacker for them in the 60s and the 70s. Again, I picked him because he is the franchise leader in terms of games played at the linebacker position for the Cardinals. So he's solid player. Obviously, he was good enough to be in the league for 15 years, all with the same team. So he's my third of the 3 linebackers.
All right. So
And then,
I'll go with my
front 7. Okay.
Front 4, really. Or front 5.
Yeah.
I went with a dime defense, so I went very heavy on one of the units. You could see why.
I can see it.
My defensive ends, I went with Chandler Jones, so he was also on the 90s or 2010s All-Decade team. I don't know if he eventually gets into the Hall of Fame, considering how his career ended and some of the issues that he had at the end of his career, which I saw, had a front row seat for with the Raiders. But when he was on, he was a great player. It was like him, J.J. Watt, as the top defensive ends in the league. I went with Simeon Rice as the other defensive end. I know he's mostly known as a Tampa Bay Buccaneer, but he was a Rookie of the Year in Arizona, 12.5 sacks that year.
He's in their top 5. I looked at him. He's in their top 5 all-time in franchise sacks.
Yeah, and he was only there for, I think, 3 or 4 years.
Yeah,
so
exactly.
Good for him. But he was a second-team All-Pro. And then my defensive tackles is probably the strength of the unit. Calais Campbell, moved him inside. And then Darnell Dockett, who doesn't have the accolades as some of these other guys do, but I think for his career, he was a Hall of Very Good player. 40 sacks, 90 tackles for loss, Pro Bowler, all the stuff. He was on that Super Bowl runner-up team. So he was a fearsome player at that position. And then I only picked one linebacker, and that was Carlos Dansby.
Okay.
Who had 3 different stints there. I think in total spent 7 years there. One of the tackle machines from the the 2000s, just racked those up. He was like a consistent 100 tackle guy. Nothing spectacular, but he was part of that Super Bowl run or that Super Bowl runner-up team. Just a very, very productive, solid player. So that's my front 5, not a front.
So
7.
So did I hear you correctly? You're going with 6 defensive backs?
I sure am. Yes.
Okay.
With a dime defense.
Well, I know what it's when you hear who we're considering, you're going to see it, right? Maybe I should have done the same thing. So I went with 4 defensive backs, which left 3 of them off that could probably be on half the league's all-time teams. I mean, there's for a team that has struggled as much as they've struggled, the number of all-timers they have in the defensive backfield is
crazy.
Insane. Yeah. So I went with as my starting corners. I've got Aeneas Williams and Roger Worley, both Hall of Famers, both multiple-time first-team All-Pros. Just great, obviously great players. Played Worley, I think he played his entire career for the Cardinals. Aeneas, I think, ended with the Rams, the St. Louis Rams, but Hall of Fame players. Larry Wilson is one of my safeties, who again, Hall of Famer, I believe a 5-time first-team All-Pro, and he was one of the early safeties that was that was defending the pass and sacking folks at the same time. So he played when sacks weren't a stat, but if they were, he had 20 plus sacks as well as his interceptions. So he's on the list of the handful of players that have this many sacks and this many interceptions. Larry Wilson was one of those. Complete tough guy. I think he played games, or if not part of a season, with 2 broken wrists. I mean, that's the way they did it in the 60s and 70s. So he was
different.
a complete tough guy and a great player. And then I've got Budda Baker as my other safety. And he's a, he plays for the Cardinals, but he is a 4-time All-Pro already. I'm not sure how many more All-Pros he'll get, but a 2-time first-team All-Pro, 2-time second-team All-Pro, 8-time Pro Bowler. He's an excellent player. Been playing in the Witness Protection Program for his entire career, but he's excellent. But what that does is that leaves off Pat Pete. That leaves off Adrian Wilson, who was a great player. That leaves off Night Train Lane, who, although he only played for the team for 68 games, he was a Pro Bowler 4 times in those 68 games. So you could play all 7 of those guys and be okay. But I'm going with the 4. So my corners, Aeneas Williams, Roger Worley. My safeties are Larry Wilson and Budda Baker.
So I went with, like I said, 6 defensive backs. And actually the one I did leave off was Budda Baker, interestingly enough. Great player, incredible player, probably most known for being chased down by DK Metcalf on that
probably
97 yard or 96 yard, almost a pick 6 or whatever it was. So I feel like the best thing about these guys is they're all kind of interchangeable. You can play them, most of them at cornerback and safety. So I just listed them as defensive backs. So I went with Adrian Wilson. He played there for 11 years, Ring of Honor, Pro Bowl, All-Pro, all that stuff. He was in the 2020 club, which is I did not know was a thing, but he's got 25.5 sacks, 27 interceptions. Probably not too many guys that
it's
have
a short
that.
List. It's a short list.
Larry Wilson, so 2 Wilsons here. He played from 60 to 72. Patrick Peterson, I could not leave him off just because he's like Budda Baker, where he was kind of toiling in obscurity. But one of those guys that you put, when you look at the numbers, you look at the accolades, you put him in that Nnamdi Asomugha, Darrelle Revis, Deion Sanders, like that kind of tier of cornerback. And then Night Train Lane, incredible nickname, one of my favorites in NFL history. Like I said, he wasn't there for that long, probably most known for being with Detroit, but one of those guys that's just like an NFL all-timer. And then Aeneas Williams and Roger Worley. So when I was looking at this, I was like, this is an absolute murderer's row of defensive backs. And I kept switching my formation. I was like, all right, I'll go with a 4-3. And I was like, wait, I can't leave Adrian Wilson off. I can't leave this guy off. Can't leave. And I still left off Budda Baker, who might be on his way to a gold jacket with all these All-Pros and stuff. So, that was the interesting thing.
Yeah, it's crazy the way it works that one team, one franchise could have so much talent in one spot and be lacking, to say it kindly, in other spots where it's such a reach. And Night Train Lane has always been interesting to me because he played for 3 different teams. And he's got kind of a claim to fame with each of them. He set the rookie record for interceptions with the Rams. That 14 interceptions in 12 games was with the Rams. Then he played for the Cardinals, and I think he ended with Detroit. So Detroit Lions fans claim him hard. Like,
understandably, right?
Yeah, they do. But he didn't. He played. I want to say he played 14. Maybe it was 12 seasons, but he didn't play a majority of his career with any team. Right? He was like 5 with the Cardinals and 5 with the Lions and 2 with the Rams. So it's he's interesting. I mean, I could go on and on about Night Train Lane. He's just an amazing all-time player and a trendsetter as well.
Maybe we do an episode on all-time nicknames and we do a deep dive on a guy like him. One thing I noticed, which was really funny about the Cardinals, is that they are like the sloppy seconds of all-time running backs, like their history. And I was just looking at who they had, late in their career. CJ2K, Chris Johnson. They had Edgerrin James after the Colts. They had Emmitt Smith, his final career, his final season. Adrian Peterson. with one of his many stops along the way. I'm sure there's other guys, but they always seem to have these guys late in their careers. Maybe Derrick Henry will end his career there, or
Who knows?
one of these guys. So I thought it was really interesting, especially because they just drafted a running back 3rd overall, and I was like, you guys never do that. You guys always take the
the guy who's on his last leg.
Yeah, exactly. But this was a fun one.
Yeah.
I think just because of how wonky it was, I was like, this was a fun deep dive.
Yeah. Had to go definitely back into the stacks. Had to really do the research. These aren't household names. Not at all.
Yeah, and my head coach, I went with Bruce Arians. Just, I was like, Ken Wisenhunt made him to the Super Bowl.
Yeah.
But Bruce Arians, they were kind of dominant. Almost.
Well, and that really, again, speaks to the history of the franchise. The fact that it's hard to even name who their best coach was.
Yeah.
Because most franchises aren't like that. I mean, you immediately go to the guy who's got the championships, who presided over the run of 8 to 10 great years.
Yeah.
They don't have
even
that.
if it was 60 years ago or something.
Yes. Yeah. They don't have it. So you've got to dig for it.
They are Browns West, but they just seem to fly under the radar. I mean, no pun intended, because they're the Cardinals.
There you go.
All right. So now it's going to be my turn to go first.
Yes.
We'll go with the Seattle Seahawks.
Yes,
so they are an
let's do that.
expansion franchise. This was a team that I really enjoy rooting for. Obviously, I'm a Raiders fan, but recently they're a team that plays a style of football that I love. Punch you in the mouth, 3 yards in a cloud of dust, lean on the run game, all that stuff. They had some really cool players growing up, and of course, in the more recent era. But for my skill position guys, I think it was a slam dunk pick at quarterback. It's Russell Wilson, very recent. I know he's become a bit of a meme, a bit of a joke, considering his last few stops. He got shipped out of Denver. But when he was with Seattle, he was incredible. One of the scariest players to root against, considering the improvisation. He is a Super Bowl champion, a 9-time Pro Bowl selection, 2020 Walter Payton NFL Man of the Year, which I think is still a worthy accomplishment, even if it happens off the field. And he has almost 5,000 rushing yards in his career, which is impressive for a guy that small to be that durable. He's like everything I think the Cardinals hoped for when they drafted Kyler Murray. They're like, oh, we got our own Russell Wilson. But, it takes a lot to be to take that much punishment and keep on trucking.
Yes.
For my other skill position guys, I skipped the tight end position altogether, and I went with 2 running backs and 3 wide receivers. My running backs, Sean Alexander, is RB1, one of the few running backs in recent NFL history to win the NFL MVP award, 2-time All-Pro, 2000s All-Decade team. His fall off was really sudden. He didn't have a long career, but, and he's a guy that, I think we talked about his Hall of Fame candidacy. I don't know I think he'll get in eventually, but.
Well, yeah, I don't know if I love repeating this stat. Hopefully someone will hear me at one point.
Yeah.
Sean Alexander is now the only player eligible for the Hall of Fame who has 100 or more touchdowns who's not in the Hall of Fame. He is the only one. There are 22 of them, I believe, who are eligible for the Hall of Fame who have scored more than 100 touchdowns. 21 of them are in the Hall of Fame. Sean Alexander is the only one who's not. It used to be 2. It was Gates when he didn't get in his first try. There was 2 of them. Now there's only 1, Sean Alexander.
Yeah.
He scored 100 touchdowns. He was a league MVP. To me, he's a Hall of Famer.
Yeah, I wholeheartedly agree. My second running back is Marshawn Lynch, who played there from 2010 to 15, then came back for a stint in 2019. Also 2-time All-Pro, 4-time Pro Bowler, one of the coolest players in NFL history, one of the most iconic players in recent NFL history, great nickname. Has the 2 of the best runs, I think, in NFL history, the Beastquake. And then he had another one against Arizona, which was not, I don't think it was in the playoffs, but it was just as incredible, if you can find that highlight. Literally caused an earthquake, or at least it registered as an earthquake. Just one of my most favorite players to root for. With wide receivers, I went with Steve Largent. He's, one of the GOATs, I think, at the position all time. I played there from 76 to 89. Long list of accomplishments. I went with Brian Blades as my second receiver. Also played there for 10 years. Not a huge accolades guy, but a very good player. And then I went with Jackson Smith-Njigba as my third receiver. He just won Offensive Player of the Year. He's on track to being one of the best receivers in their franchise history. And I gave him the edge over DK Metcalf, even though he was there a little bit longer. But it's kind of slim pickings, I think, at the skill positions for
At
Seattle.
the pass catchers. Yes, it was. Did you happen to look up who was their all-time leading receiver among tight ends?
I did. Was it Noah Fant or someone?
No, it's Jimmy Graham.
Jimmy Graham.
It's Jimmy
He's a great
Graham.
player.
Yeah,
but he wasn't there for that long.
The fact that he's got more receiving yards than any tight end in Seattle Seahawks history, and he barely played there.
Yeah.
It led me to do the same thing you did: two running backs and 3 wide receivers.
Right.
So
same guys or different guys?
Well, no. So I Russell Wilson, of course. What's your take on, is Russ a Hall of Famer?
No, I don't think he is. I think he's just outside of it. I think. I don't know if there was any point in time in his career where he was a top 5 quarterback in the NFL. I think he was just outside of that. I think he does suffer from the fact that most of his team's success, when they were successful, came with the Legion of Boom, and that's mostly what they're known for, and Marshawn Lynch and that whole period. And then when the whole let Russ cook thing went viral, that's when things started to spiral for the team, and they and I think his reputation as being difficult in his own way, like he's not. It's one of those guys where he's outwardly seems like very cordial. He's a gentleman to the press, things like that. But he was getting some of the diva treatment. He wanted like the Brady treatment, where with his own office, his own trainer, things like that. I think that ultimately is going to hurt his reputation. Maybe when he retires and we kind of zoom out in 10, 15 years, and we're like, that Russell Wilson guy was pretty good. But he also played in an era with Breeze and Manning and Rivers and Rodgers and Brady and all these guys.
That'll be interesting, because for me to say that Russ is not a Hall of Famer, you're also saying that Rivers and Ryan aren't Hall of Famers. So
they're not to me.
Well, that's the thing. So but people are really willing to draw the line above Rodgers' head, or above Russ's head, but somehow try to finagle Matt Ryan and Phillip Rivers into the Hall of Fame.
Yeah.
So to me, I'm content with all 3 of them not making it. I mean, again, they were probably somewhere between, in a bunch between the 7th and 9th or 10th best quarterbacks of their era, right? So it's, I'm fine with them not being Hall of Famers. Should the 7th best player in any position in any era be a Hall of Fame? Now sometimes we do that with quarterbacks, but I think that if either one of Rivers or Ryan gets in, then you can no longer justify Russ not getting in. But I think you're exactly right with his the way his career has ended, the things that have come out about him. He is outwardly polite, but it seems, I guess, inauthentic is the way that people would.
Yes,
I mean,
that's a good way that's a good word.
The whole there's a staged aspect of it, like let's Broncos country, let's ride. It's like he was looking for a branding slogan versus playing football, right? He was looking for a catchphrase, and there's just something about him that rubs folks the wrong way. But if you're looking at the numbers, I mean, he certainly has a case. He certainly has every bit as strong a case as Ryan and Rivers, if you're so inclined to put them in.
Yeah, I think for Ryan and Rivers has kind of like that folksiness, that folk hero. Like, especially I think the fact that he came out of retirement is going to help him, probably, because he's a likable guy.
Yeah,
and then
Ryan, and sadly, that's part of it, right?
Yeah,
sadly, that's part of
the politics of it.
Yeah.
And then Ryan, he's stayed visible. Now he's moved into a front office role with Atlanta. Another guy. I mean, maybe it helps that it's kind of it's not a strong quarterback tradition in Atlanta, but it's also a major market. So maybe that gets him. And again, this is all part of it, right? Because it's the voters that decide. Yeah, if you're a nice guy and they like you, it matters. So
and that's the sad part about it, right? The perception and visibility and all of those things matter, which is probably why so many linemen struggle getting in. They're not doing any of that.
Exactly. They're not getting interviews the way quarterbacks are.
Yeah.
So who are your skill position guys?
All right, so I've got the same running backs, Alexander and Marshawn Lynch, just one of the Beast Quake run, one of the most iconic plays in NFL history. I mean, my goodness. And then I went with, of course, you got to go with Largent as your wide receiver 1. He retired as the Triple Crown holder in receiving, right? He was the career leader in receptions and yards and touchdowns when he retired. Jerry Rice snatched all those away from him pretty quickly. but when he retired in 1989, I think it was, he had all of that.
Played for one team too. That
played
helps,
for one team.
right?
That helps as well. But I went with Tyler Lockett and Doug Baldwin as my 2 and my 3. They were their longtime Seahawks. I think they're 2 and 3 on the receiving list, and they both a couple Pro Bowls each. No one else really stood out. I mean, I looked at JSN. You know, I was considering that, but I'm like, nah, not yet. He's likely to be. I mean, he might be wide receiver 1 by the time he's done, but I wasn't ready to put him in there just yet.
Yeah. I looked at that receiver list. I was like, Tyler Lockett. He just
No, I get it.
Maybe ahead of Brian Blades. I could have. I just thought, all right, he was there longer. He's second in receptions on the franchise. I was like, all right, if you're gonna go like career accolades, he wasn't on a Super Bowl team or anything like that. Right. But it's like Doug Baldwin's always like,
and DK too. I mean, he's just more exciting. I mean, when you think about all time, like he was an all time physical talent. It just fits. It just feels better to put a guy like that on, right?
Yeah, for sure. All right, let's and then for offensive line. So they have a okay offensive line tradition, I guess. So my tackles, I went with Walter Jones, one of the all-time greats. I think it's fair to say he's a Hall of Famer. 2014, a bunch of All-Pros, 2000s All-Decade Team. Supposedly he was penalized for holding just 9 times in his career.
Yeah, I've seen that stat. Yeah. I wonder. Well, but where I've seen it is as quoted by the team. Yeah. So I don't know if that's a stat that's really kept, and can we compare that to other guys? But
yeah, exactly.
He was clearly
and how many of those were declined because of a sack or something that?
He was clearly a legend.
But yeah, great player. My other tackle, Steve August, played there for from 77 to 84. He's on the top 50 all-time team for the Seahawks. And then for my interior line, I went with Steve Hutchinson, also a Hall of Famer. Didn't only play for the Seahawks. I believe he played for the Vikings, where he's most known for. And then Chris Gray, my other guard, played there for about 10 years. He's also on the 35th anniversary team. And then Max Unger was my center. He was a Super Bowl champion, first team All-Pro, played there for about 5 years from 2009 to 2014. So not an incredible offensive line tradition, but pretty solid, I'd say, across the board.
Solid. I did some reaching on mine.
Okay,
so,
please.
Walter Jones, of course, you got to have Walter Jones, and I have Max Unger as well as the center. Robbie Tobeck was also a Pro Bowl center for the Seahawks. He played guard for the Falcons before he played for the Seahawks, so I put him at guard here. So he's one of my guards. Hutchison is another guard. He started out, he played, just like you said, he possibly known more as a Viking, played his first 5 years with the Seahawks, and I don't think it's a coincidence that he left, and shortly thereafter, Alexander fell off as well. I mean, so he was a big part of what they did in the running game as well. So amazing player. And then I have Russell Okung as my other tackle. Okay. So
that's fair.
He's solid. He was a one-time Pro Bowler. It wasn't a little bit of a reach, I would say, but at the same time, he was a strong player.
All right. Yeah. I think that there's a lot of that with the Seahawks. Maybe there's an expansion team. Maybe we'll probably run into the same thing when we get to like Carolina or Houston. Well, I guess it depends how far back we go with Houston. We'll have to decide on the rules. But all right. For my defense, I went with a 3-4. So they don't have a strong defensive line tradition. I feel like even the Legion of Boom era, you probably would hesitate to name a lot of the defensive linemen on that team. But for my defensive ends, I went with Jacob Green, who's played there for 11 years, Seahawks Ring of Honor. And he was the franchise's unofficial all-time sack leader because they didn't have the stat for the beginning of his career. The other defensive end is Joe Nash, played there for 12 years, first team All-Pro, Pro Bowl selection. Played there, like I said, for 15 years. One of those guys that goes from undrafted to team legend, even if he wasn't a league legend. And then the one guy I think that's an all-timer on this position group is Cortez Kennedy. I played to put him at nose tackle. 90s all-decade team retired, or the number retired by the team. Hall of Famer. just one of the most disruptive, like interior defensive linemen in NFL history. Like you'd put him in the same category with like John Randall and Aaron Donald as guys that would just wreak complete havoc from the interior, which is, not something that you see a lot of.
Yeah. Cortez, one of my favorite stats about him, he won Defensive Player of the Year for a 2-win team.
Wow.
A 2-win team. He was so good, just like you said, so disruptive that he was the Defensive Player of the Year. I think it was 1982 for a team that only won twice. That's how good a defensive player he was.
So that's incredible. Usually that's a disqualifier, but if you're that good, it doesn't even matter.
Yeah, it happens. It definitely doesn't happen for MVP or Offensive Player of the Year. It happens, every 10 years or so, you'll get a defensive player like Myles Garrett who will do that for a bad team. But 2 wins and he's the best defensive player in the league. That's saying something.
Yeah, and that was 92.
92, sorry.
All good. And then my 4 linebackers, this was a decent linebacker tradition as well. The first outside linebacker is Chad Brown, who also played for the Steelers, but he spent a decent amount of his career in Seattle. He's an all-time pro, a second-team All-Pro, 2-time Pro Bowler, 48 sacks, so he was a great edge rusher, very versatile player. My other outside linebacker is from the Legion of Boom. That's KJ Wright. He spent 9 years there, Super Bowl champ. Not too many accolades aside from that. I think he was overshadowed by the next guy I'm going to mention. That's Bobby Wagner, who was also overshadowed in his own way as one of the elite middle linebackers in this era. Played there from 12 to 21 and then went back for another year. Super Bowl champion, 6-time first-team All-Pro, especially in an era with Ray Lewis and Fred Warner and Patrick Willis and so on and so forth. Luke Kuechly. So it's a pretty incredible accomplishment. He is also on the 2000s All-Decade team and I would say first ballot Hall of Famer when he decides to hang it up. I think he's still trucking.
He's still with the Commanders. Yeah, I would argue that he might have. I mean, if you squint, he might have a Mount Rushmore case
for the team for the linebacker.
Yeah, I mean, he's got in his career, he now has 11 All-Pros. So, 6 first team, 5 second team All-Pros, 11 All-Pros in a career for a linebacker. Nobody's got that, right? Ray Lewis, I think, might have that many. So you have to start it's not the way he was talked about as like one of the all-time best defensive players, but if you're playing at that level for that long, you at least have to have the conversation, right?
Yeah, absolutely. And I think on the Legion of Boom, like he'd probably be the third name out of your mouth when you would talk about them because Richard Sherman was the mouthpiece. Earl Thomas was probably the other one, and then you'd probably say, okay, Bobby Wagner. But for out of those 3 guys, he's definitely had the best career. And is, like you said, a Mount Rushmore guy, first ballot Hall of Famer. And then the other inside linebacker I went with, Fred Young, played there from 84 to 87, so just a few years, but had a great peak. Ends up getting traded for 2 first-round draft picks, so probably would have had a longer career and a much greater career with Seattle, but I would say his peak is hard to argue against. But yeah, he was a 2-time first-team All-Pro during his stint there and a 4-time Pro Bowler for his stint in Seattle. So that's my front 7.
Yeah, okay. All right. So I went with a 4-3 instead of a 3-4. So, of course, I've got Cortez. Cortez is in the inside. I also put Joe Nash on the inside. So he's, just like you said, he's a 1-time Pro Bowler. He played 218 games for the Seahawks, but he was also on that 84 team. And the 84 team had one of the best, we don't talk about them, but they had one of the best defenses ever. They had 63 takeaways that season, which is the most since the merger. So since 1970, no team has had as many as 63 takeaways, and that was the 84 Seahawks. And of course, when we get to the secondary, we'll talk about probably the best player on that 84 team.
Yeah.
So on the edge, I've got Michael Sinclair, who was their, I guess, number 2 sacker, and then their number 1 sacker you've already mentioned, Jacob Green. When I looked at him, I'm like, my goodness, he has 115 career sacks. He has 6 double-digit sack years, and he made the Pro Bowl twice. I'm like, why was he not getting any attention? But it's the era
he was in,
yeah. But he's their all-time sack leader, and 115 sacks is a whole lot of sacks historically. Now, again, official, unofficial, official, but
Yeah.
still, that's a whole lot of sacks. I mean, there's 100. I think we had this debate, or not this debate, this conversation before. You get over 100, you've done something in a career in the
in
NFL.
any category, I think.
Yeah, yeah, pretty much.
Any consideration for Michael Bennett on that?
Yeah. I had him. I looked at him. You know what? I even looked at John Randall, but he just didn't play there long enough. I mean, I think he was only there for 2 or 3 years, and he did his best work for the Vikings, of course. But I looked at putting John Randall on the team as well, but I just couldn't find a way.
And your linebackers?
Oh, and my linebackers, Bobby Wagner, of course, Chad Brown. I've got the same Chad Brown. My third guy, I went with Lofa Tatupu. He was really, really good in the first part of his career. His first 3 seasons, 3-time Pro Bowler, a first-team All-Pro. Then he got hurt, and it wasn't. And obviously, he, short career due to injury. But he was an amazing linebacker in the very first part of his career while he was healthy. So Wagner, Chad Brown, Lofa Tatupu.
Yeah, great player. This was the Hasselbeck Alexander era of the Seahawks. So I think that era gets overshadowed obviously by more recent success, but great player. But short career there. All right. For my defensive back, so I went with 4 defensive backs. Cornerback 1, Richard Sherman, I think is a slam dunk pick.
Yeah.
Probably a Hall of Famer, I think, when eventually.
I think so.
But 4-time All-Pro, 4-time Pro Bowler, 2010's All-Decade Team. That's usually the giveaway. Had some strong seasons with San Francisco as well, but obviously most well-known for being the mouthpiece of the Legion of Boom. Don't try me with a sorry receiver like Crabtree. He's got an all-time quotable.
All-time quotable.
So my goodness. He's got a mouth on him like most of the great defensive backs do. And then I bent the rules a little bit. I played Cam Chancellor at cornerback. I guess you could just list him as a defensive back, but he was the enforcer of that Legion of Boom. Also, 2-time All-Pro, 4-time Pro Bowler, Super Bowl champ. And then for my safeties, I went with Kenny Easley, who you alluded to as being the best player on that 84 defense. Just one of the best players, I think, at that position in an era where he probably got overshadowed by guys like Steve Atwater and Ronnie Lott, but definitely an incredible player who doesn't get enough credit for the things that he did. But he's a Hall of Famer, so good for him.
He's a Hall of Famer. It took him a while because he he was the 1984 Defensive Player of the Year in that season where they had the great defense. And then I think there was a contract dispute and they traded him. But when he was taking the physical for the team he got traded to, they found out that he had I think it was a kidney condition, and he had to retire. He couldn't play because of this condition. And ultimately it was the reason he passed. But so he only played maybe 5 or 6 years.
Seasons.
Yeah, 6 seasons. But he was in those 6 seasons, he was absolutely dominant. Great player.
Also 80s All-Decade Team. So that's enough to tell you the kind of player that he was. It took, like you said, took him a while to get to the Hall of Fame. He got in 2017. But also another guy whose number was retired by the franchise. And then my free safety is Earl Thomas, whose career ended, I think, in shame is a good way to put it, with some of the controversy, and getting stiff-armed in the back by Derrick Henry to end your career is not great, but but he was the leader of that defense, him and Bobby Wagner, I would say, and he was the quiet one of the group. He wasn't the fiercest hitter, but he was an incredible center field type safety that was just making plays all over the place. 3-time first-team All-Pro, 2-time second-team All-Pro, 6-time Pro Bowler, 2010's All-Decade Team. Probably a Hall of Famer as well.
Yeah, I mean, the thing is, it's just hard with safeties. For him, it's not his performance that'll get him; it's his position. Because if you're a 5-time All-Pro, and you played for a championship team and you were an all-decade player, that should be plenty. You got a great
nickname, or you're on a defense with a great nickname. That
should be plenty. That should be plenty. But safeties have a tough time, so I think he might, not because of anything he's done, but because of the position he plays.
Yeah. Let me hear your defensive backs.
I've got 3 of the same 4. I didn't bend the rules. I didn't put Bam Bam Cam on. He was my first out, and I put in instead Dave Brown, who was light on accolades, but he is their all-time leader in interceptions. So he is
saying something. That's saying something.
Yeah. So he's got 50 interceptions for the Seahawks. So he's my quarterback 2. But Sherman, Easley, Thomas were the rest of my defensive backfield.
Great.
And of course, Pete Carroll, of course, is the.
Yeah,
I mean,
yeah, exactly. Head coach Pete Carroll was there for 13 years. Super Bowl champ, 1-1 in the Super Bowl, despite the failure, I guess, whatever word you want to use, for that play at the goal line where they could have won a second Super Bowl.
Could have, should have.
Yeah, he took the Seahawks from being, they were like, oh, this is kind of a fun team. Like, okay, y'all met Hasselbeck Super Bowl. That was fun. Sean Alexander, great player. But yeah, it's kind of like they're like almost an overlooked franchise in a lot of ways, an expansion team. He took them from that to, no, this is one of the best organizations in the NFL. This is their Steelers West with the defensive identity. And that has obviously since carried on with Mike McDonald, who's taken that same tradition. So it's really cool to see, history being made with a guy like this, where he takes a franchise. Same thing that Bill Belichick did with the Patriots. We took like a joke of a franchise, made it like, no, they are a serious team. You see them on the schedule, even if they're not that good, you're going to get a fight because of the name on the front of the jersey. So he's a easy pick for the all-time coach.
Yes, no doubt.
All
so
right.
Are we out of the Rams?
Yes, we are. See, the St. Louis, Los Angeles, where I'm sure they've been somewhere else as well. But they've been all over the
Cleveland,
place.
actually. They started in Cleveland.
Yes,
they moved to Los Angeles. St. Louis, back to Los Angeles.
And they're still popular in Los Angeles, even before they moved back. They were still LA's second team for a while. I guess the Raiders were number one.
Now, they are not popular in St. Louis. St. Louis, no. they're dead to St. Louis sports fans.
Yeah. Shout out Ron Cook and the St. Louis Sportists. They're big fans of the show. Ron Cook's a good friend of mine. We've done a couple of shows together. Check out the St. Louis Sportists podcast. A lot of them have since converted to Kansas City fans. And some of them are just, team agnostic. They're NFL agnostic. They're just like, oh, I'll watch Mizzou and then, root for the Cardinals instead of watching football. Yeah. Or the Battlehawks. I guess they like the XFL,
the
UFO.
Battlehawks. Yeah, there you go.
All right, let's hear your offense for the Rams.
All right, so what many fans might not know is that the Rams don't have just one Hall of Fame quarterback. They have two. Bob Warnerfield was the first Hall of Fame quarterback, but I went with Kurt Warner, two-time MVP, obviously the greatest show on turf, the best offense by yards per play that has ever been was I believe the 2000 team was that team. So he's who I have at the quarterback. The running backs.
So before you go to the running backs, did you give any consideration to Roman Gabriel?
No. I mean, not. I mean, he was a great player. I believe he won the MVP for them.
He did.
So, but body of work, I didn't think that it was more than either Waterfield's or Warner's.
Okay.
But I shouldn't say no consideration. I just he would have been third on my list.
Okay. I'll take it.
Running backs, Dickerson and Falk. I mean, my goodness. Goodness. Marshall Falk, 3 straight Offensive Player of the Year awards, 3 straight top 2 MVP finishes. He won it in 2000. He won 2000, actually. He won it. And then Dickerson, of course. I mean, there's I'm not sure if any running back had a better start to the career than he did. Maybe Earl Campbell had a similar start. Jim Brown had a similar career, but Eric Dickerson comes out of the gate with 1,800 yards and then backs it up with 2,100 yards. It's just unbelievable.
Was this a 14-game season? Or
no, he was playing 16-game seasons.
Okay.
But so he's still the single season rushing leader. The fact that he didn't win it in '84 because Marino went off in that same season. All those great seasons he didn't win an MVP. I think he finished twice, finished second twice, if not 3 times for MVP. But obviously, just that running back crew with the Rams, unbelievable. And then I went with.
And you left someone off. I think we talked about. We hinted at it, right?
Their all-time leading rusher is Steven Jackson, I believe, right?
Yep.
And
10,138 yards.
Yeah.
For Steven Jackson.
He is. He's someone who was always good. He was, and I would. He was a B+ to me. And just a very solid back. But I mean, obviously he's
8
there was
consecutive
one.
1,000-yard seasons.
Yeah, yeah.
So durable, big,
Yeah.
strong.
Oh, yeah.
But
I love the player. I love the player. But if you've
it's not
got,
his fault.
yeah, it's not his fault. I mean, if you've got Falk and Dickerson in your franchise, you know, unless you're going full house backfield.
Yeah, exactly.
So you could have done that. But
Mhm.
then I went with 3 wide receivers. Again, there's not a strong tight end tradition with the Rams. So I've got Ike Bruce, who is their all-time leading receiver. I've got Torrey Holt, who's, I believe, number 2, and in some ways has more accolades than Ike does. One of the biggest snubs going right now for Hall of Fame. And then my 3rd wide receiver is Crazy Legs Hirsch, who is also a Hall of Famer. All decade for the 50s. Multiple Pro Bowler, multiple first-team All-Pro, and Hall of Fame player. So he is my wide receiver 3 in this case.
Right. Yeah. So we had the same quarterback, the same 2 running backs. I think it's no debate. They probably have the best, not the best, but maybe among the best running back traditions in the NFL. I mean, we didn't even talk about Todd Gurley, who very similar, had a very, very short career, but his total touchdowns, I think he has like 60 total touchdowns in a very, very short amount of time. I forget. I didn't look too deeply because he wasn't on my list, but an incredible player that just had an elite start to his career.
Yes.
And he doesn't even he's barely even mentioned here.
Yeah.
Maybe if he played longer. And Jerome Bettis played there for a hot minute. So
a couple years,
Yeah, a couple years. For my receivers, I went with Isaac Bruce and Torrey Holt, but I also went with Henry Ellard as my wide receiver 3. 3-time Pro Bowler, played there for 10 years from 83 to 93, almost 10,000 yards, almost 50 touchdowns. So he's probably overlooked. And then Cooper Kupp gets some love here too. He's not on my list, but he was a Triple Crown winner with them, didn't play for them for that long. But it's crazy, right? They have 2 guys very similar, like they kind of got burned out very quickly, but they, at their best, Todd Gurley was maybe the best running back in the NFL.
Well, he was, 100%. 100%. 100%.
Yeah, so it's kind of crazy. There's those 2 parallels between those 2 guys who don't make the all-time list, but maybe all-time single seasons. You could throw them in there. Definitely Kupp, but not Gurley, because unfortunately, 2,100 yards.
Yeah, there you go.
All right, let me hear your offensive line.
Okay, offensive line. I did some, I don't want to say finagling here, but Orlando Pace and Jackie Slater are my tackles. Orlando Pace is one of the greatest tackles of all time. Jackie Slater is certainly one of the greatest Rams of all time. He played there for 20 seasons, 7
bonkers. Yeah, incredible.
Yeah.
20.
I mean, 20 years as an offensive lineman. My goodness. 4-time All-Pro, 7-time Pro Bowler. Tom Mack is one of my guards. He's an 11-time Pro Bowler, also a Hall of Famer. So Slater, Pace, and Mack are all Hall of Famers. And then we got Dennis Hara, who was a 1-time All-Pro, also playing guard. And then Rich Saul, I picked as my center. And this was, I thought this was cool. He spent his first 5 years with the team as the long snapper. That's what he wasn't their center. He was the long snapper. Finally elevated to be the starting center on the team.
It's like Jared Allen, right? Didn't he start off as this long snapper as well?
Yeah. And then became in his last 6 or so years with the team, 6 Pro Bowls. So, and he was their center when they went to the Super Bowl 14. He was their starting center. So he's my center on that team.
We've got 4 of the same 5, so Pace, Mack, Saul, and Slater. And I decided to have a little bit of fun with the right guard position because it was kind of wide open. But I went with someone named Riley Matheson, who played for the Cleveland and LA Rams from 39 to 42 and then 44 to 47. Guys like this, I love, they're like historical oddities, right? Where this would not happen in any other era. His career is interrupted by World War II. So just a completely, different kind of thing. But he did win. He won a championship with the Cleveland Rams. So good for him. But he was 6-time first team all NFL, 41, 42, 44, 45, 46, and 47. So obviously there was a year in between there where he was not playing. And also a CFL All-Star. So just for fun.
Hey, why not?
But here's a really cool stat. So he was an offensive lineman, but he also played defensive back and has 14 career interceptions. So
offensive lineman, and there can't have been that many guys who played offensive line and defensive back, right?
Exactly.
Because you would figure the defensive backs are also the running backs, or you don't usually see that.
Yeah, but this is one of the things I love about this podcast idea is just like getting to go deep into the archives, especially for teams that, we, at least me personally, I'm not a big fan of or anything like that, don't know too much about. So you get to go explore some of the history, and you find a name like this and you're like, all right, who the hell is Riley Matheson? You go down this rabbit hole of cool stuff. Let's hear your defensive front seven, front six, however you laid this out.
I'm running a 4-3, and I want to say that there may not be a single better defensive unit in anybody's all-time team than the front four that we're going to trot out for the Rams.
Yeah, we probably have the same.
Yeah, I mean, so on the inside, you've got Merlin Olsen, 14-time All-Pro, 5-time first team, or 14-time Pro Bowler, 5-time first team All-Pro. Next to him, you're going to play Aaron Donald. 10-time
also
Pro
great
Bowler.
Nickname, Merlin Olsen, that unit, the Fearsome Foursome.
Incredible
nickname.
Yeah.
Love that.
Right. Awesome. And the 70s had all the great nicknames.
Yeah.
but you've got Merlin Olsen next to Aaron Donald, 8-time first team All-Pro, 3-time Defensive Player of the Year. And then off the edge, you're going to have Deacon Jones on one edge, who 5-time first team All-Pro, invented the term sack.
Yep.
Just all world defensive end. On the other end, you're going to put Jack Youngblood, who is, again, another 5-time first team All-Pro. So our front four across, the four men have 23 first team All-Pros. All four of them are Hall of Famers.
Yeah.
Two of them are Deacon Jones and Jack Youngblood are in the top 6 in sacks unofficially. And we left off Kevin Green. I left off Kevin Green, who's also one of the all-time leading sackers on this team. He did it for a bunch of different teams, right? He did it for the Steelers and the Panthers. He played for the Niners for a bit, but he played for the Rams too. So I think we're going to have trouble finding any single unit that's any better than that one in any of these teams that we do.
Yeah, as far as like a unit, maybe the Raiders defensive backs, maybe Arizona's defensive backs.
I mean, you've got, but the thing about maybe this, we didn't say yet, maybe
Pittsburgh's linebackers, but
possibly. But you've got those four guys, 2 of them are Mount Rushmore at their positions. I mean, you could argue that I'm not sure many people would put Deacon ahead of Reggie White, but Deacon is definitely in my Mount Rushmore for defensive ends. You can't have a defensive tackle Mount Rushmore, I don't think, without Aaron Donald.
He's probably top. Yeah,
exactly. I mean, so you got, and then Merlin Olsen, who was amazing in his own right. I mean, I will. As we go through this, we'll have to see how many groups have multiple Mount Rushmore players in the same position room. But that's what the Rams have. Yeah, that's what the Rams have. It falls off a little bit for linebacker. It has to. Just by definition, it has to. Isaiah Butch Robertson. I've got him at one of the linebacker spots. He was a very good linebacker, multiple All-Pro linebacker. Sadly for me, I remember him best as the guy that Earl Campbell trucked in Earl Campbell's highlight, Hall of Fame highlight, the one where he ducks his head and runs over a Los Angeles Rams. It's a Ram. It's this Los Angeles Ram. But he was an amazing, amazing player. 1971 Rookie of the Year, Defensive Rookie of the Year as well. Les Richter, I have as one of their linebackers. He's a Hall of Famer, multiple All-Pro, 5-time All-Pro with them. And then Maxie Bond, who actually played most of his career with the Eagles. But with the Rams, he played 5 seasons there and was an All-Pro 4 times. So he was a very solid, not just solid. And I wanted to find a place, but you talk about nicknames. One of the best linebacker nicknames that's ever been is Jack Hacksaw Reynolds, the middle linebacker for the 80s Rams he played with Youngblood and those great Rams teams of the 70s and early 80s. Their middle linebacker, his name was Jack Hacksaw Reynolds. Couldn't find a place for him, but he's honorable mention for me.
All right. So yeah, front four, it's just a slam dunk. You can't really go get any better than that across any position group in the NFL. I mean, if it's not the best, then it's at least among the best. My linebackers, I had to hop in my time machine a bit for this one. I went with Les Richter, played for there from 54 to 62. He's a Hall of Famer, defender and kicker. So good for him. Played a couple different positions. Isaiah Robertson, like you said, was a defensive rookie of the year, 2-time All-Pro, 6-time Pro Bowler, played there from 71 to 78. This guy, Tank Younger. So he was a linebacker and fullback.
And a running back, yes.
Yeah. Played there from 49 to 57, 3-time All-Pro, 4-time Pro Bowler. He was the first player from HBCU to play in the NFL, played in Grambling State. So I thought that was a fun little nugget there for his career. And he was also the first black player to ever be selected for the Pro Bowl. So I thought, okay, he's a great player and the first in many categories.
Yes.
So those are my three linebackers.
Okay.
So Les Richter, Isaiah Robertson, and Tank Younger. So not a strong linebacker tradition, obviously, but that's cool that they have a trailblazer. Bobby Wagner played there for a season. So he gets some
there you
love
go.
there.
There you go.
He elevates things a bit. But even now, I mean, during this whole Sean McVay era, they've had great defensive backs, obviously great D linemen. They've got a great one now in Jared Verse, but no great linebackers.
No.
Interesting.
Linebackers seems like, well, I can't say that. I mean, it's just, some franchises that's just not where their history is, and that it hasn't been for the Rams.
Let me hear your defensive backs.
All right, and the again a little bit of a struggle here.
Yeah,
I went their franchise leader in interceptions is a player called Eddie Mater. So I have him as one of the. He was a multiple All-Pro. He's got 46 interceptions. He was one of my defensive backs. Leroy Irvin is another one, multiple All-Pro. I have him at corner. Nolan Cromwell, who was again. I kind of grew up on him. He played in the 70s and 80s when I first started watching football. He's a 3-time first-team All-Pro, so he's one of my safeties. And then I've got Jalen Ramsey here, and. Me, I like to go with the old guys whenever I can, right? I want to see careers play out before I put people on all-time teams. But he was a 3-time Pro Bowler. He was a 2-time first-team All-Pro, and the Rams in their history don't have anybody better than that. So I go ahead and went with that.
Yeah, we actually have the same 4 guys, interestingly enough, which doesn't happen too often. But yeah, Jalen Ramsey, I was like, he was really good. He was great.
Yeah.
Not even really good. He's great. He's still great. Really versatile, plays a bunch of positions. But some of these other guys, they are like, again, some historical oddities, right? Like Eddie Mater, who played all over the place for them. Nolan Cromwell, the guy you brought up, I guess he used to play quarterback and got he probably, unfortunately, one of those guys that had to switch positions. But for whatever racial politics, that kind of thing. But yeah, not a strong defensive back tradition whatsoever, which is interesting. And then who was your head coach for the Rams?
I mean, I would want maybe at least to consider John Robertson there. I want to consider John Robinson there, but you kind of Vermeil is worthy of consideration. McVay is so good now. Like you want to give it to him. I don't know. I think that if I was forced to take one, I think McVay is going to end up being the best coach of all of them in terms of like career. So I'll go McVay.
Yeah, I went with McVay as well. I gave Vermeil some consideration, but you think that, once he wraps up, I think McVay is going to be one of those names that just gets mentioned with some of the other guys, Belichick and Reed and Walsh. And I think the coaching tree is a big part of it as well.
Oh, his tree
where
is
just the branches are spreading all over the place. And I apologize. I misspoke. Nolan Cromwell is white. He's not black. That's my fault.
I was gonna let you. I was just gonna let that be.
I know, it's okay. I wish you said something. I was like, I think so, and then I remembered his Football Reference page. But yeah, he did switch from quarterback to safety. So all right, over to the 49ers. All right, so I am a Bay Area kid. I grew up a Raiders fan. I did not hate the Niners growing up. I will say I do have a strong dislike for them now since the Jim Harbaugh era. I think a lot of it has to do with just a lot of jealousy of their recent success.
Right.
And the fact that I just have so many 49ers fans in my life that are constantly teasing me about
That's
the
what
Raiders.
does it. That's what does it. The people in your life will make you hate a team.
Exactly. That's exactly what's happening. But I am a rational hater, I guess. I'm not blind to the fact that this is one of the best teams and best organizations in NFL history, and they are absolutely stacked at almost every position. Not all of them, some of them, little short on it. But yeah, so I will be objective and fair.
Excellent.
Talking about that. And I've got a Niners jersey on right now. Who would have thought, right? All right. So at quarterback, I went with Joe Montana. It was not a slam dunk.
It's not.
And this is a team maybe has the best quarterback tradition in the NFL with Montana, Steve Young, John Brody. There's some other names I'm sure I'm forgetting. Y.A. Tittle, I believe, played here for a bit.
Played. Yeah. Well, yeah, it depends on how deep you want to go. I think if you're going top two, there's only the Colts would probably match them or rival them in top two. If you're going top three, now you pulled the Packers in because you've got Favre, Rodgers, and Starr as top three.
Very true.
Yeah. So, but yeah, I mean, as a top two, it's hard to see anybody past them.
Yeah, I put a question mark. I didn't. It wasn't a statement. It was a question. Let me throw this out there.
Fair.
But I was just looking at their all time lists, and I was like, okay, like that stacks up against just about any team. I probably would give it to the Packers for those three guys, but in terms of like total accolades and everything else, I think they measure up with anybody else.
Sure.
All right. In terms of skill position guys, I went with two running backs, Roger Craig and Frank Gore were my top two.
Okay.
So Roger Craig, I mean, one of the just shortly recently became a Hall of Famer. There's only 4 guys all time with his amount of rushing yards, so over 8,000 rushing yards and over 4,900 receiving yards. If you do 8,000 and 4,000, it becomes a little bit bigger of a list, but close to 5,000 receiving yards. Only 4 guys all time, and one of those is Tiki Barber. Interestingly enough, so the other 2 guys are Hall of Famers. I'm forgetting the names right now, but I think someone like Christian McCaffrey will probably get there. A couple other guys, but it's a short list and of versatility.
Right, sure.
Then Frank Gore, one thing I love about his career is that he has exactly 16,000 yards.
Exactly. It's 16,000
on the dot. I wonder if
we need to go back and look at that last carry. Was it
exactly right? I was
going to
say maybe someone will use AI, like feed all his highlights into a AI and say, are there any yards that were miscounted or whatever? Maybe a tackle for loss that was 3 yards instead of 2, whatever it is, just for fun. But I just love that little quirk. The guy plays for 20 years. He has 16,000 yards exactly. 9 seasons over 1,000 yards, 2 more over 900 yards. 81 touchdowns. So like I try to think of like a historical parallel for him at other positions where I don't think at any point in his career you would say this guy is top 3 at his position, maybe even top 5. But the fact that they just were able to just write his name in Sharpie on the depth chart, right? Engrave it in stone. This guy was always going to be there. He's always going to give us 1,000 yards. And this is a guy that was injury riddled in college. So an even more, remarkable achievement for a guy like him.
Yeah.
Wide receivers, top 2, I think obviously measures up with anyone in NFL history.
By definition, but you've got half of Mount Rushmore
exactly
on there as their wideouts.
But I think there's a pretty steep fall off after the top 2. So when you talked about top position groups, when you said the Rams, like maybe the Niners receivers, but not much after. Maybe Dwight Clark, but he was, he's more known for that one great catch than I think a long career.
Sure.
But Jerry Rice, the GOAT NFL player, GOAT receiver, all that stuff. He just has cartoonish stats, things that just seem ridiculous. He's the Wilt Chamberlain of the NFL, where, it'll be like, oh, hey, Shea Gilgeous-Alexander just had 40 straight games of 20 points. And then the number one is Wilt Chamberlain with like 120. Something ridiculous like that, where every stat in the NFL, every receiving stat is everybody else, Larry Fitzgerald, Randy Moss, and then, 10 feet of excellence and
Yeah.
Jerry Rice at the top, right? There's
My
there's
favorite,
that. Oh, go ahead.
my favorite stat of his. Well, I mean, he is the
I feel like
all-time
I know
leader.
where you're going with this,
Yeah, but
please.
he's the all-time leader in receptions. He's all-time leader in yards, in touchdowns, regardless of position. Touchdowns scored.
Yeah.
But he's got so many yards that if a receiver entered the league right now and had 12 seasons of 1,800 yards per season, they wouldn't have as many career yards as Jerry Rice.
That's
and
ridiculous.
There's only been, and to make that even more crazy, there's only been 6, I believe it's 6 still. Maybe if somebody did it this year, maybe it's 7, but 6 or 7 1,800-yard seasons in the history of the league.
Yeah.
And someone would have to do 12 of them in a row, and they still wouldn't have as many yards as Jerry Rice. And oh, by the way, no one has had an 1,800-yard season after age 28 except Jerry Rice.
Yeah.
so you couldn't even, I mean, it's just, and the fact that he did it in the era just before the passing explosion. So his numbers, as crazy as they are, are even more impressive because he did it in an era that was harder than today to pass. So, I mean, you can't say enough about Jerry Rice and what he was able to accomplish in this league.
I mean, he also, we can't overlook the fact that he did play with 2 GOAT level quarterbacks, right? So I wonder if you put Randy Moss on a better franchise or a run of better franchises where, you know, instead of catching passes from Kerry Collins in Oakland or something like that, or, you know, that year in Tennessee, whatever it is. But I mean, I think the difference between Randy and Jerry Rice is the mental aspect, the work ethic. You know,
all of that.
Randy Moss, probably the most talented receiver of all time, but you could probably throw Megatron in there as well. But
sure,
you know, the excellence and just the more you look at his Football Reference page, just the more absurd it becomes.
10 first-team All-Pros in 11 seasons.
Yeah.
10 first-team All-Pros in 11 seasons.
The most receiving yards over 40 is like, I think he has like 2,500 or something, and then the next is Tom Brady with like 15.
With 6, something like that. Yeah.
Whatever it is. Well, that's my favorite Jerry Rice stat is the most receiving yards over 40.
After 40, Jerry Rice, 30 and above, is a top 15 receiver. Take out his 20s. And he's a top 15 receiver in terms of the touchdowns and yards and all of that. I mean, it's bananas. Back to your other point, though. Definitely
2 Hall of Fame careers.
Oh, yeah, for sure.
Maybe 3, borderline 3. I think you could make an argument.
For sure, 2. But the thing, back to the other point you made, though, about he played with Hall of Fame quarterbacks. This is, we could probably do an entire podcast of this one, but there's a reason that obviously Montana was good before he got there because Jerry got there afterwards.
Yeah.
But to a degree, great players make each other, right? He was there. So it's so easy for fans, and sometimes fans want to diminish Montana's, what I see it a lot, where they want to discredit him or discredit Steve Young because they had Rice. I'm like, well, they made each other. Right, you're not a great quarterback without a great wide receiver, and vice versa. So,
and I think
I don't take anything from Jerry. I don't take anything from Jerry.
I don't mean it as to take away from Jerry. It's more of like to uplift some of the other guys, like someone like Larry Fitzgerald, who had a terrible run. The recent guy, Justin Jefferson. I mean, it's more to uplift these other guys.
That's fair.
But I think Jerry Rice completely refutes those arguments. He shuts down those arguments with the fact that he helped Rich Gannon become an MVP, who was, you know, a so-so journeyman quarterback before him. He's just, again, the 1,000-yard season at age 40, things like that, where he's not playing with Hall of Fame quarterbacks. He's playing with decent quarterbers, you know, Jeff Garcia in San Francisco, guys like that. He made them also look great. So it's not to take away from him. It's more to uplift. So that's what I'm about, uplifting these guys.
I love it.
So we spent all this time. We didn't even talk about the other Hall of Fame receiver, and that's Terrell Owens, who just made it in. Someone that I really grew up watching. Yeah, I caught, you know, the tail end of Jerry Rice's career, but I was there for the entire Terrell Owens experience.
Right.
And I would call it the experience because that's exactly what it was.
That's a great way to put it.
From San Francisco to Philadelphia to Cincinnati to Buffalo and so on. Dallas, of course.
Don't forget Dallas.
Can't forget Dallas. But he was a 3-time All-Pro, first-team All-Pro with San Francisco, 3rd all-time in yards and touchdowns. Probably should have been a first ballot Hall of Famer, but he's more like, you know, first ballot, you know, pain in the ass for being
Mm,
in the locker room. Like he's, wide receiver, diva wide receiver, and you probably see his name
yeah, the
in the
definition of.
dictionary.
The
Yeah,
definition of.
exactly. But an all-time great player, and someone I think that kind of got a bad rap because he was so competitive. He always wanted to win. I remember when I was growing up, Skip Bayless was a writer for the San Jose Mercury News, and
Okay.
one of his hallmarks, which is what he does, is just pick a player to bully. And
Yeah.
it was, in Dallas, it was Troy Aikman.
Mm,
On ESPN, it was LeBron. And now
yeah.
in San Jose, when he was writing for the Mercury News, it was Terrell Owens. He was the easy target for him. And I think a lot of people just hopped on that bandwagon.
Yeah.
And then for my tight end, there's strong tight end tradition. I think George Kittle is the clear number one.
To me.
Yeah, two-time first team All-Pro, 5-time total. Probably another guy that's on his way for a gold jacket.
Yeah.
We'll see how his career ends up after this Achilles tear. But 4 seasons with 1,000 yards receiving, and on a team like this with a great pass catcher tradition, to be third all-time in receiving yards on this team is quite the accomplishment.
Yes.
But
yes.
definitely show some love to Vernon Davis and Brent Jones, from different eras, but not quite as good as George Kittle.
Agreed. So we've got the same pass catchers. Obviously, we've got Roger Craig, the same as well. Joe Montana. I mean, I tried to squint and see if I could get Steve Young there. No, it's hard to. And I maybe as a Bay Area fan, I don't know if you feel it differently, but it's as great as Steve Young is, as I would have loved to see his entire career play out with him being a starter. I mean, he's basically a starter from age 30 on. But
and if he didn't spend all the couple years with LA Express and things
LA
like
Express,
that,
he played for the Bucks. He was on the bench for 4 years, if not 5, for the Niners. I mean, he basically missed his entire 20s, in terms of that. But it's still hard to not view him just a little bit standing on Montana's shoulders, right? Versus, he didn't build the thing from scratch, right? He got to jump into a car that was already humming.
Yeah.
And so it's hard to put him ahead of Montana for that reason alone. But as far as the running backs go, my second running back is not Frank Gore, but I've got Joe Perry. Joe Perry was the all-time leading rusher, Hall of Famer, the all-time leading rusher when he retired in 1963. Of course, Jim Brown snatched that right from him the following season and held it until Walter Payton broke his record in 1984. But he was a great running back. And then, I guess on my honorable mention, I've got Gore, I've got Hugh McEnany, I've got Kyle Juszczyk. would have loved to find a way to put him in there. Nine-time Pro Bowler, multiple All-Pro. But for me, my backs are Joe Perry and Roger Craig.
Yeah, and I wonder where Christian McCaffrey ends up. If he keeps on trucking. I mean, he's 30. He's got a lot of miles on him.
Well, he's got a lot of miles on him. I mean, it's hard to. Yeah. He's going to be very interesting to see how much more production he has in him, given his injury history, and and the fact of the matter, he's just not a big dude, so NFL is a dangerous game.
Yes, it is. And in speaking about the quarterbacks, I think it's a generational thing. I think, growing up in the Bay Area, you see a clear generational divide between people who are Joe Montana guys and guys who are Steve Young guys.
Yeah.
And I think it's just, if you were watching in the 80s, Joe Cool was number one, and he's not even the best Niners quarterback. He's just the best quarterback of all
just
time,
period. Yeah.
People will, use all these, they'll kind of say some goofy things about, he played in an era where, you could, he was the coach on the field and you could actually hit the quarterback. They kind of do it to take shots at Tom Brady.
Yeah, of course.
Versus elevating Joe Montana, which is not what we're about here, right? We're about elevating guys. So it's a very clear generational divide. All right. For the offensive line, I'd say they have a pretty strong offensive line tradition, not super strong. Everywhere else they're stacked, so why not? This is just okay. For my tackles, I went with Trent Williams, who is a really interesting case study in a player being failed by an organization and then being able to bloom and do what, and just excel in the right situation. Because with Washington, they misdiagnose a cancer diagnosis. They do all kinds of crazy things to him. They trade him for scraps, and then he all of a sudden becomes, one of the best tackles in NFL history with San Francisco. All of his All Pros. I mean, his Pro Bowls he was a Pro Bowler in Washington, but he was not, an All Pro in Washington. And just an incredible player, period. My other tackle, Bob St. Clair, so he played there 53 to 64. Also Hall of Famer. Trent Williams definitely on his way to the Hall of Fame, but a 9-time All-Pro for Bob St. Clair. My two guards, Guy McIntyre, played there from 84 to 93, so 3-time Super Bowl champ. He was on, those Bill Walsh, George Seifert teams. And then Randy Cross, my other guard. So I think in the Bay, he's probably more known for being a broadcaster. But he did play there from 76 to 88, 3-time Super Bowl champ, 3-time second team All-Pro, played guard and center. So he could have probably played him at center as well. And then for center, I went with Forrest Blue. Really cool nickname, by the way, or cool name, I should say.
Cool name, yeah.
2-time All-Pro, 2-time second team All-Pro, 4-time Pro Bowler. Probably the best center in franchise history. You could argue some other guys as well, but that's my 5-man offense.
Okay. All right. Well, I'm very close to that. I finagled a little bit. I've got 4 of the 5 same guys. My tackles are the same as yours, Trent Williams and Bob St. Clair. I've got Guy McIntyre as a guard. I've got Randy Cross as the center. And then I was just struggling with leaving Joe Staley off the team altogether. So I slid him into guard. So he's gonna not that he's not that he ever played guard, but sometimes tackles slide to guard. So I said, you know what, let me put this guy who's a 3-time All-Pro, 6-time Pro Bowler. I think he's in my mind he was better than any other lineman that I would have put in anyway. So
totally fair.
I've got Staley in as the guard there. So,
yeah, I have Joe Staley ? In my notes, trying to fit him in there.
Yeah.
And then, Isaac Sapolu, Mike Iupati, throw him in there, recent guys.
Yeah.
A fun nugget about Bob St. Clair is he actually served as the mayor of Daly City, which is a small city south of San Francisco, during his active playing career. So
really? I did not know that.
For 1 year. There's 3 years, actually, 58 to 61. Okay. So just a fun little nugget.
Nice little tidbit, yes.
Yeah, who would have thought? His nickname was the Geek. So good for him. All right. For my defense, so absolutely stacked defensive line and linebackers, but I went with a 3-4. Okay. So I went with Justin Smith as one of my defensive ends. Played there from 2008-2014, part of that Jim Harbaugh. Really strong defense with him and Aldon Smith and all those guys. 3-time All-Pro, 5-time Pro Bowler, nicknamed the Cowboy. It's another great nickname. For my nose tackle, I went way back. This was a name that I was honestly not familiar with before, but it was Leo Namalini.
Leo the Lion!
Just incredible resume. Played there 50 to 63. He's a Hall of Famer shortly after, class of 69. 6-time first-team All-Pro, 10-time Pro Bowler, 50s All-Decade team. The first ever draft pick in 49ers franchise history. So very cool that he ends up being one of the all-time greats.
That it worked out, yeah.
Yeah. And he's the only 49er ever to earn All-Pro honors on offense and defense. So, tackle and defensive tackle. So again, the stuff that just doesn't happen anymore. Maybe you'll get a guy that's an All-Pro kick returner, an All-Pro wide receiver.
Right.
Maybe in Travis Hunter's wildest dreams, he ends up doing that. But not something that you'll probably ever see again or very often in NFL history. And then the other defensive end, Bryant Young. Just an incredible player. I think underrated from this era. I think he's one of the forgotten names, but he played there for 13, 14 years, was part of the Super Bowl team, but then also was part of some really bad teams in the early 2000s, but he was there for a long time. Hall of Famer in 22, 4-time All-Pro altogether, 4-time Pro Bowler, Defensive Rookie of the Year, 90s All-Decade team, all that stuff. So an incredible player for my front three. And then for my linebackers, so this is when you talked about the Rams and their defensive line, I thought about the Niners and their linebackers because I picked 4 of them here, and there's several other guys that probably are honorable mention. But my outside linebackers are Charles Haley, who was not there for that long, but was another legendary pain in the ass,
yes.
But an all-time great player, Hall of Famer, 2-time Super Bowl champ, All-Pro. 3-time All-Pro, 3-time Pro Bowler, 65.5 sacks, and he gets traded to Dallas, of all teams. They had this weird thing going where they hated each other, but they kept making trades. My other outside linebacker was Navarro Bowman. He's technically an inside linebacker, but, I had to make room for these other guys. Yeah. Also a 4-time All-Pro, who had a very short career, unfortunately, due to injury and other things like that. But his peak was incredible. Very similar to Patrick Willis, who was one of my inside linebackers, also a Hall of Famer. Similar to Terrell Davis, where he just had this incredible peak where he was probably the best player at his position, but didn't play very long, but doesn't matter because he was just incredibly dominant. And then an active guy in Fred Warner as my second linebacker, second inside linebacker. So he's been there since 2018, already been a first team All-Pro 3 times. He was probably on his way to another All-Pro season last year before breaking his ankle.
Yeah.
And just probably the standard at middle linebacker right now in the NFL, in a position that, I think that's kind of overlooked these days, the same way that running backs are. I think it's there's symbiotic relationship between those two.
Yes.
But that is my front seven.
All right. I've also got a front seven, but I went 4-3 instead of 3-4. Okay. So on the inside, I've got Leo the Lion Nomalini. So I was aware of him. So he played in a time where you had guys playing both ways. So he was a tackle, an All-Pro tackle, and an All-Pro defensive tackle. So I've got him on the inside. I've got Bryant Young on the inside as well. Okay. So I've got him there. I've got Justin Smith off the edge. And I've got Nick Bosa off the edge. Now, peak Nick Bosa is amazing. He can't stay healthy, clearly, but when he is right, he's one of the best players to play that position, certainly for the Niners.
I debated really hard between him and Charles Haley.
Yeah, and that's the thing with Haley. I looked at Haley and actually I was looking at Haley and Justin Smith because they were both similar in terms of what they did for the Niners. They were pretty similar. I thought Justin Smith just did a little bit more for the Niners than Haley. So I've got Haley just off the list. I also looked at Fred Dean. I looked at Dana Stubblefield as potential defensive lineman, but I went with Bosa and Smith on the edges, Nomalini and Bryant Young in the middle.
Honestly, Alden Smith deserves some consideration there.
He does too. Yeah, he was amazing for the 2 years. 2 or 3
years before he flamed out. Yeah,
right, exactly. Now, linebackers, I went with 3, Fred Warner, Patrick Willis. So you've got a future Hall of Famer, you've got an actual Hall of Famer in Willis, and then Dave Wilcox, who was also a Hall of Famer. So he was a 3-time All-Pro, 7-time Pro Bowler. He played in the 60s and 70s. So 1964 to 1974, I think it was. So he's my third linebacker. All 3 of them, as soon as Warner gets in the Hall of Fame, all 3 of them will be Hall of Famers.
Yeah. And there's the other guys like Matt Millen played there, Bill Romanowski.
Bowman, like you said.
Yeah, Bowman, Ken Norton Jr., just for a brief career there. Yeah. But just so many linebackers. It's like they're spoiled at that position, especially compared to some other teams where we're going back to the 50s for guys.
Exactly.
All right. And then defensive backs, you know what? This is not a strong position group for them. For some reason,
not as strong as you would think.
Yeah, for some reason, growing up, you always think, oh, they just had a great defensive back group, but not really, which was surprising. But I guess you can't have it all. So for my cornerbacks, I went with Jimmy Johnson, who played there from 61 to 76, Hall of Famer, in 1994. 6-time All-Pro altogether, 5-time Pro Bowler, 70s All-Decade team. His number is retired by the franchise, number 37. So that was they call him the original shutdown corner in San Francisco. With my other corner, I went with Deion Sanders. We talked about this being like it's hard to put him on because he only played there for a year, but he was just so damn good that 1 year.
Possibly the best single season a cornerback has ever had.
Exactly. And in terms of cultural impact, like you go to Niners games now and you probably see more Deion jerseys than, just about as many as like any active player. So yeah, he won Defensive Player of the Year, all that stuff, and helped them win a Super Bowl. He was the missing piece for them on that Super Bowl team. And then for my safeties, I went with Ronnie Lott, who is obviously an all-timer, probably Mount Rushmore guy at the position. Played there for 9 years, 4-time Super Bowl champ, Hall of Famer already in 2000, 9-time Pro Bowler, 6-time All-Pro. He was an all-decade player in the 80s and 90s.
And the 90s.
So just an incredible player who's still good on some other teams, bounced around a bit after, but just the heartbeat of that defense of that dynasty team. And then free safety, I went with Merton Hanks.
Yeah.
Again, not a super strong defensive back tradition, which was surprising, not that deep after these four guys. And the fact that you put Dion in there for one season, I tried to find someone else. I really did.
No, I hear you. I hear you.
I was like, one season, is that enough? But I guess when you're that good, but Merton Hanks, Super Bowl champ, one-time first-team All-Pro, three-time second-team All-Pro. Growing up, we loved his chicken dance celebration.
Yes. Probably best known. I mean, almost overpowers the fact that he was a really good player. He's a four-time All-Pro, but he's best known for his dance.
Exactly. We all grew up, again, I wasn't a Niners fan, but we all grew up, imitating the chicken dance. It was kind of like the Dirty Bird they did in Atlanta, but like his own version of it.
Yes.
And then let me hear your defensive backs.
Okay. I've got three of the same four. I've got Hanks. I've got Lott, of course, Ronnie Lott, but most fans don't remember he was a corner. And he was a Pro Bowl corner, or not just Pro Bowl. He was a first-team All-Pro corner. And then I guess he lost a step and he transitioned, but earlier than most players transition away from corner to safety. And then when he went to safety, of course, he blew up, was both All-Pro for the Niners, but also was a first-team All-Pro for the first year he was with the Raiders. So he was an amazing all-time Mount Rushmore player. So
we claim him. The Raiders claim him.
Oh, you claim him too? Okay, all right. So so those are my safeties. Jimmy Johnson at corner, and I was with you on Dion. I'm like, I just philosophically, I cannot put a guy who played 1 year with the team as an all-time.
That's fair.
So I put Kermit Alexander there, who was the third all-time leading interceptor in 49ers history. He's below Lott and Jimmy Johnson, I believe. He's number 3 with 37 interceptions. He's a corner. So not a ton of accolades, but in terms of franchise production, he's up there. So I have him as
that's fair.
CB2.
I think maybe Eric Wright, you give him some
Eric Wright.
there.
And I've got in my notes, I've got Deion Sanders and Eric Wright. Eric Wright was a 2-time All-Pro as well. 1-time first team, 1-time second team. So I looked at him as well, but went with Kermit Alexander.
It's prime time, baby. You can't deny it. All right, then head coach, slam dunk, Bill Walsh. There's no argument there.
No question.
Coach there for only 10 years, so similar to John Madden, really, like where they did not have super long tenures, but they reached the summit of the league. For 3-time Super Bowl champ.
I wonder if that doesn't help their legacy. The fact that it's almost like an actor passing away while they're young. It's like you never get to see them struggle, right? As a coach,
true.
Right? So I think that helps. That's probably helped Madden's legacy and Walsh's legacy and Vince Lombardi's legacy. You got these guys that had very short, super successful tenures, and you never saw them coach a 2-14 team.
Yeah. But I mean, he would have had the luxury of going from Montana to Young, right?
He could have had 10 more years of that.
Exactly. And he would have had Rice for another, 10, 12 years or whatever after he kept going. So it's true that the short period, you don't get to see them have to fully rebuild. They don't have to deal with all the changes in the NFL. They played an era or they coached an era without, free agency and things like that. But doesn't take away from the genius that he brought to the game, the West Coast offense, all that stuff. And the fact that he took a team that was kind of a joke. Like
they were a bad team when he did that. He did that. I think they won his first 2 seasons, which were also Montana's first 2 seasons, I believe. They won like 6 games in those first 2 seasons before 81. And then the rest is history.
Was he there when they traded for OJ, which was a disaster season, or was it right before he got there?
I'm not sure if he was I want to say that OJ's year there was his first year there, but I'm not sure if he was involved in the transaction. That part I don't know.
Yeah, I did a what if. This was one of our early episodes of how I think we talked about this, how OJ was the indirect architect of the almost dynasty in Buffalo because of everything they got for him, and then he was the direct architect because of how bad he was in San Francisco that led to, them being able to pick up all these Hall of Fame players just because of how bad he was. This was awesome. This was so much fun. I did not expect us to go for this long, but we had. We're just having a great time.
Yes.
Rank them. Who you got?
Whew. Well, I mean, I think on the strength of quarterbacks alone, you have to go with the Niners. I mean, the Rams group is so strong. Obviously, you've got that defensive front four, those running backs. Defensive front four of the running backs are so good.
Yeah.
But you just got more depth with the Niners. So, I mean, we talked about the defensive back room. Even the defensive back room, which was lower by Niner standards, still wasn't bad. You still got 2 Hall of Famers out of the 4 players we put in there, and the other guys have won multiple All Pros. So like there wasn't a bad room in the entire team. So they're the clear number 1. I think the Rams are the clear number 2.
Yeah, similar to the AFC West, where you got 2 very clear, then 2 very clear.
Yeah, and then I mean I guess I'd go Seahawks. It's just there's this very outside of that defensive back room for the Cardinals, there's very little that's impressive, right?
Yeah,
I mean, you don't have any, unless you're counting Night Train Lane, you don't have any Mount Rushmore players on the entire thing, right? Quarterback, running back, no. Lineman, no. I mean, you've got a handful of Hall of Famers there. Again, they're all in the defensive backfield. But it's just So I think it's Niners, Rams, Seahawks, Cardinals.
Yeah, we agree. And our condolences and sympathies go to the Arizona Cardinals fans.
Yes. I feel you.
One day you'll get there.
Yeah.
All right. Where can folks see and hear more from you on social media and everywhere else?
Football Fanstorian on all the things, on Instagram, on TikTok, on Facebook, everywhere that you social media, Football Fanstorian.
And you can catch the 4040 Vision podcast on the same stream, the same publishing stream on YouTube, Facebook, TikTok, all that stuff at 4040 Vision Sports or at 4040 Vision Pod. Thanks, everybody. Thanks, Mac.
Thank you.